The Seattle Seahawks have struck with a major blockbuster move to upgrade their defense. One of my longtime favorites, Leonard Williams, the big man from the Big Apple, has been traded to Seattle for a 2024 this year second round pick and a 5th round pick in 2025, next year's draft. Big move by both sides. And I think it's very interesting from both perspectives. The headlines, of course, are for the Seahawks. And that's where I want to begin, because Seattle has needed an upgrade to their defense. For a while now, it feels like Seattle has been trying to rebuild their defense. Long ago, they had a unit called the Legion of Boom, and they've been trying to replicate and rebuild this unit. Last year, they were more of an offensive team, but early this year, you have seen Seattle really play well on that side of the football defensively with some big moves that they made this offseason. Draymond Jones was one of them up front. Bobby Wagner coming back at linebacker. Signing a Julian Love at safety. Drafting Witherspoon, of course, arguably the top corner in the draft, who has been Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate since he hit the field. Tariq Woolen, a smash pick last year. This defense over the last couple of years has transformed into a young, promising unit. And now they add some flavor on the defensive line. Leonard Williams has long been one of my favorites. Why has he been one of my favorites? Because the man is versatile, powerful, and there are moments where Leonard Williams can take over a football game. It doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, but Leonard Williams is one of those guys that in the inside of a defense can dictate both in the pass and the running game. This season so far, Leonard Williams, according to Pro Football Focus, ranks at number 14 in terms of pressures at his position, tied at number 14 with Devontae Wyatt of the Packers, Ed Oliver of the Bills. He also has worked in tandem with Dexter Lawrence, who actually leads the NFL in pressures. And in his overall pass rushing grade, he is ranked number 19. So not only can you use a stat that shows you that Leonard Williams, pressures, has been productive this year as a pass rusher, but also his grading would reflect that as well. His sacks this season haven't necessarily been there. I think he only has 1.5 sacks this season. But the pressures show that he's always close in impacting the quarterback. He's not quite 30 years old yet. He's born in 1994, so he's almost 30 years old. He was a former first-round pick, drafted 6th overall by the New York Jets long ago. I've seen this guy play many a time in my division as a Pats fan, along with the Jets. And then I really grew to love his game with the Giants, where he was traded, played about 4 years there, had a big year with like 12 plus sacks, has had multiple big years there, Pro Bowl caliber player for many years with the Giants and the Jets. Leonard Williams is an absolute monster. I've always kind of compared him to like a Richard Seymour type of player. He's a good pass rusher, a good run defender, could play in any scheme on any team and any defense. He could play in a 4-man front. He could play in a 3-4 traditional front on a defensive end position. He could probably play a shade nose if you want him to. The guy can play all over the defensive line. He could probably move out to the edge occasionally and rush the quarterback. Like, this is the type of freak at times this guy can be, with great length, great power, very good with his hands because of that length. And I think the main reason the Giants have been a pretty good defense this year is him and Dexter Lawrence. in the middle of the defense. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants fell off a little bit post this trade because of how impactful those two and how dominant those two have been at times. So, yeah, Leonard Williams, really, really good football player. I think Seattle is going to love him. And I wouldn't really look into his sacks. Like, don't be just watching Leonard Williams and look at the box score at the end of the game and say, oh, he didn't get a sack, so he sucks. Like, really watch him play and watch how he impacts your defense. I think he's going to help, mostly your pass rush. Because so far this year, you've been pretty good against the run, and I don't really think that's really a concern. But overall, I would look at your pass rush as an area where he could certainly upgrade. And just pulling up the Seahawks depth chart, I know you guys brought in Draymond Jones. You have Jarran Reed, who in moments has really flashed this year in his return. You don't have a lot of depth on the inside of your defense, right? Mario Edwards Jr., who's kind of been a journeyman, is another one of those pieces. But you add Leonard Williams in a heavy three-man front Seattle's running the last couple of years. You have those three inside with Draymond and Leonard Williams on the DN positions, and then Jarran Reed as the nose tackle. That's a pretty dangerous trio inside. What I really like about that is when you look at the NFC and the contenders in the NFC, you have to be able to play physical, tough, powerful football when you take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Leonard Williams has obviously played the Eagles many times, so I'm sure the Seahawks probably looked at some of that tape to see how he performed against the Eagles. If you want to make it through the NFC, you've got to play against the Eagles. Secondly, you need to be able to get an interior pass rush when you play the Niners. They're in your division, they're a competitor, they're a contender, they're going to be a good team in the end. And it feels like if you can get Brock Purdy up the middle, and if you can stop the run of the Niners up the middle, you're not really going to be beating Trent Williams. If you have an edge rusher, that might be negated regardless of how good he is. So by getting an interior rush with Draymond Jones, with Leonard Williams, with Jarran Reed, you're going to have a chance to disrupt the Niner passing game right up the middle of the pocket and force some potential turnovers, batted passes, missed throws by Brock Purdy over the middle of the field, which is where Purdy throws the ball most of the time. So big, impactful move in the division. Then you look at Dak Prescott, who's another main contender in the NFC. Dak Prescott, pocket passer, doesn't really move a ton. You want to get in the middle of the pocket. You want to force this quarterback to move off his spot. When Dak Prescott moves off his spot, he's not as effective of a quarterback. So the Seahawks have created a trio that's really dangerous. I've already been impressed with Jarran Reed and Draymond Jones in this defense. I actually thought Seattle might go after an edge rusher because they lost Nwosu. Maybe they still will. Maybe there are guys, plenty of them out there, the Preston Smiths, the Jerry Hugheses. There's veterans out there, maybe a younger guy like Josh Uche. They could probably still afford one of these guys if they want to go that route. They don't have to, but I think them addressing the interior tells you what they think they need against their competition. Interior pass rush against Dak Prescott. Interior pass rush against Brock Purdy. Strong run defense up the middle against the Eagles. Don't get pushed back, right? And pass rush doesn't hurt at all against the Eagles either. And if you're going to attack the Eagles, you probably don't want to line up against Lane Johnson. You probably want some power up the middle against those guards and Jason Kelce. So for me, I like the move. Boye Mafe's been playing pretty well this year on the edge. They brought in Frank Clark as a potential depth option as well. Darrell Taylor's on the other side. So he had a ton of sacks last year. He's been playing okay this year. I mean, nothing special. But, I still think they could bring in another edge rusher. But overall, this does majorly impact your defense. All-around versatile defensive lineman that can play inside, that can play all three spots on the inside, could probably play on the edge in certain situations if you need him to, can disrupt versus the run, and can be a very effective pass rusher, as we've seen with the Giants. We've seen him on multiple teams be effective, play at a Pro Bowl level on multiple teams in multiple systems. I think this is a great move for the Seahawks. They play a pretty similar scheme overall to the Giants. There's probably some differences, especially in the coverage aspects of it, but up front, I think they expect something very similar. So I really like how this fits, and I really like how Leonard Williams is going to be able to help the Seahawks against their main competition in the NFC. And Lions fans are probably commenting right now, why didn't you bring up the Lions? The Lions as well, man. They have 2 really good tackles. If you're able to stop the run against the Lions, force Jared Goff to become a drop back passer, how do you get to Jared Goff? You get to Jared Goff through an interior pass rush. He's not a mobile guy. So to me, like, every single check of the box, Leonard Williams helps you do that against your main competition. Your secondary just feels like it's growing with each and every week. Your offense feels like it's getting better as the offensive line gets healthier. Geno Smith, if he can play at a consistently pretty high level, you're going to be a dangerous team on offense with those receivers and that running back. If this defense can really grow into a top 10 unit, now we're talking about Seattle potentially being a contender. This was the type of move they needed to make that jump. I thought that Seattle might be a little bit more conservative in the trade deadline. I felt like them in Detroit, they needed to make a major move to get on the level of Philly, San Fran, and Dallas. Now they've made that move, I feel like, to put them in that conversation. So Seattle has joined the NFC elite, in my opinion, by trading for Leonard Williams. And if you're a Seahawks fan, you should be excited about this team for not just this year, but the next couple of years. Leonard Williams, 29 years old. You didn't even have to pay for his full contract. We'll see how they reconstruct it. But those are my initial thoughts. One of my favorite players in the NFL, very underrated player. Leonard Williams goes to the Seattle Seahawks. It was maybe a little pricey giving up a 2nd and a 5th round pick for a near 30 years old interior defensive lineman. But to me, this is a team that needed to make one of those moves. I don't think it's going to kill you in the long run. I think it will be more beneficial and put you in the conversation in the NFC. So congrats, Seahawks fans. You should be excited. Giants fans, you should be probably, I wouldn't say excited, but I think you should be happy with the return. You didn't give up, you didn't get ripped off for a 5th or 6th round pick here, like we've seen so many times before in trades, where it's like, why is a player of that caliber getting traded for a 4th or a 5th? Leonard Williams went for a 2nd and a 5th, so nearly a 1st round pick. You get a good return here to help you build your future, probably on the offensive line, maybe a little bit on the defense, maybe even looking towards wide receiver or quarterback. The point is, the Giants need a lot of pieces, more than just one Leonard Williams. The Seahawks, it's the opposite. They need big-time playmakers that can help them get to where they want to go. They get that with Leonard Williams. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's Mitch. More trade deadline reactions coming up. Peace, guys.